overall, leopard geckos are probably going to take the win here. Good morning, Reptilians. Welcome and welcome back to the channel. I'm Elle, and this is Elle's Reptiles. Usually when I do these, we are joined by Zaz, but Zaz's fourth UVB light has broken in the past month, and she's not too pleased, so here we are. This week, we're doing a video that I honestly thought that I did already. I was asked multiple times to actually do this video back when I did all the other animal versus animal videos, and I guess I just never did. I don't know what happened there. But today we're going to be comparing two of the most popular pet reptiles in the hobby, bearded dragons and leopard geckos. Before we get started, this video is sponsored by the Doobie Dude, so make sure to stay until the end of the video to find out how you can save 10% off of your entire order at thedoobidude.com. Let's get started. So the first category we're going to look at is just basic info about these guys. To start off with, bearded dragons are going to live for about 10 to 15 years. They can and have lived a little bit longer than that, but on average we're looking at about 10 to 15 years, where a leopard gecko we're looking at up to 20 years, and again, there have been some that have lived a bit longer than that. 5 years in the grand scheme of things isn't too much of a difference, but that is a difference there. With the size of these guys, bearded dragons obviously get much bigger than leopard geckos. We're looking at the average size of a bearded dragon being about 16 to upwards of 24 inches from head to tail tip. Zaz, just to put that into perspective, is about 18 inches. But for leopard gecko, we're looking at about 8 to 11 inches full grown. Sometimes the size of these guys alone is enough to make someone choose one over the other. They also are going to be active at different points of the day. So bearded dragons are strictly diurnal. They are out in the daytime. They are out basking, eating. They do all of their activities in the daytime. At nighttime, they want all their lights off and they sleep throughout the night. Zaz goes to sleep when her lights turn off, and she does not wake up until her lights are on or the sun shines through her tank in the morning. With leopard geckos, they're kind of iffy. They basically just do what they want. So in the wild, these guys are crepuscular, which means they're going to be most active around the dawn and the dusk. In captivity, this can vary greatly. They can be active during dawn and dusk hours. They can be out and basking and active during the daytime, or they can come out at night. It really just depends on your specific leopard gecko. When I very first got Percy, she was basically strictly nocturnal, and now she comes out during those dawn and dusk hours. My other leopard gecko, Winter, she is strictly nocturnal, even though she does have a deep heat projector so that she could come out and bask during the daytime. But I do know a lot of you guys as leopard geckos come out and just straight up bask in the daytime, so it's going to depend greatly on your leopard gecko. If you have a tiny little baby leopard gecko, the odds are that they're probably going to be nocturnal just while they're young, just because the world is new and scary to them, and they're tiny little babies. You're a giant. They're probably going to want to be out when you aren't. Now let's move on to the husbandry of these guys. Their care is kind of similar. It makes sense why a lot of people have a hard time choosing between bearded dragons and leopard geckos, because they are both going to enjoy an arid environment, a dry, warm environment. But there are obviously some differences. So as we talked about earlier, bearded dragons get much bigger than leopard geckos. That means that they need much more space than leopard geckos. Bearded dragons, you're going to be looking at a minimum of a 4-foot by 2-foot tank for an adult, whereas a leopard gecko, you're looking at a 40-gallon breeder, which is a 3-foot by 18-inch tank. Obviously, you can get them both bigger tanks if you want, but that is quite a bit of a size difference between the two. So if space is an issue, definitely keep that in mind. As far as setting up those tanks, bearded dragons are, again, diurnal. They are going to be out basking during the day. They rely heavily on UVB lights. They need linear UVB lights that run the top of that tank. However, leopard geckos don't need that intense of a UVB light. They do greatly benefit from UVB lighting. Don't get me wrong there. Whereas a bearded dragon needs an intense amount of UVB light in order to prevent metabolic bone disease, leopard geckos benefit from UVB light. So there's quite a difference there. As far as heating, bearded dragons are going to do best with a basking spot, just because the light mixed with the heat is what they are drawn to, whereas leopard geckos in the wild are going to spend the daytime hours in caves in rocky crevices. So you can use a basking light for them that will heat up wherever they're hiding, but they also could benefit from heat pads on thermostats or from deep heat projectors, as long as their hiding spot, their daytime hiding spot, is warming up. they're going to be good to go. Both of them will also benefit greatly from naturalistic setups. So bioactive mixtures of topsoil and sand mixed with some reptile safe desert plants like succulents are going to be beneficial to them. You can also do tile for either one of these. I recommend a dig box for both of them if you go the tile route, but the substrate options and decor options are going to be pretty much the same. The only difference of things in that tank that they need is, number one, leopard geckos are a lot more likely to drink out of a water dish. So even if you don't use a water dish for your bearded dragon, you do need to have one in your leopard gecko's tank. Leopard geckos need at least 3 hides. They need a hot hide, a humid hide, and a warm hide, whereas bearded dragons, they can get away with having 1 or 2 hides in there. So the tank setups are a bit different, but the environment is going to be very similar. On to feeding these guys. So in my opinion, leopard geckos are much easier to feed than bearded dragons because they are strictly insectivores. The only thing that they're going to eat is insects. Obviously, you're going to need to provide them a variety of insects, but that's all that they need. Whereas a bearded dragon is going to need insects, a variety of insects, and salads. They're going to need leafy greens, squashes, strawberries. They're going to need nutritious vegetables and occasionally fruits in their diet, as well as those insects. And just because of that and the fact that vegetables and stuff go bad so quickly, in my opinion, leopard geckos 100% win on this. They both do require supplementation, so they're both going to need a calcium supplement and a vitamin supplement to dust their bugs with when you feed them bugs. The cool thing about leopard geckos though is that you can have a small dish of calcium in there, and if they are feeling like they are low on calcium, they'll just go and eat directly from that. Or if you are feeding them bugs in a dish, you can just put the calcium and vitamin directly in the dish and just let the bugs move around in it, and they will eat the bugs and lick up the extra vitamins or calcium or supplements or whatever. Whereas bearded dragon is just going to go directly for the bugs, and that's it. So you have to make sure that you dust them really good. But in my opinion, leopard geckos win this just because you don't have to buy the vegetables, you don't have to prepare the vegetables, you don't have to worry about the vegetables going bad. It's just one less step that you have to take. Let's move on to their temperament. Their overall personalities are going to be pretty similar. They are both super sweet animals for the most part. Every time I say this, I get people that say, my leopard gecko is really mean, my bearded dragon bit me. This is for the most part. Every animal is different. Every animal has different personalities, but for the most part, the overall temperament of both bearded dragons and leopard geckos is super sweet and nice. That's why they are both always on beginner pet lists. However, handling these two are going to be pretty different. Handling an adult bearded dragon, usually it's going to consist of throwing them on your shoulder. They're just gonna chill out there for a while and you're going to put them back in their tank. That's usually the extent of it. Whereas a leopard gecko, handling them is going to be you hand walking them or letting them explore in a safe area. They're going to be very curious. They're going to want to explore wherever you put them. For this reason, bearded dragons are going to be much better if you're wanting a pet to just hang out with you and watch movies with you, play games with you, whatever it is that you do. If you want that sort of animal, bearded dragons are definitely going to be the best for that purpose. And initial handling down of bearded dragons is generally a lot easier than the initial handling down of leopard geckos as well. So with bearded dragons, most of the time, they are good to go being handled as babies. I always suggest giving them a week before you start doing that. Some of them want to be out and interactive within the first couple days. That's just completely normal for bearded dragons. With a leopard gecko, this process takes a little bit longer. Baby leopard geckos are very skittish. With both of my leopard geckos when I got them, I just kind of left them alone and let them do their own thing. I would handle Percy occasionally when she would let me, but other than that, I just let her do her own thing. If I put my hand in the tank and she ran, I did not go and dig for her and find her. I just let her come around to me, put my hand in that tank a lot, and eventually she came around to me, and now she thoroughly enjoys being out of her tank being handled, but it was a lot longer and a lot more difficult of a process than it was with my bearded dragon. So the initial time that you're putting into these animals to get them to the point of being handleable can potentially be quite a bit different. And the last thing we're going to talk about is availability and price of these guys. This is very, very similar. So for both leopard geckos and bearded dragons, at least here in the United States, they are going to be available anywhere and everywhere. If someone sells pets, they're going to have leopard geckos and bearded dragons. That doesn't always mean that they're going to be healthy, but they're always going to have them. The price of these guys is also very similar. If we are looking at a normal morph of a leopard gecko versus a normal morph of a bearded dragon, they're both going to be between about $30 and $60 Keep in mind though that both of these guys are going to come in a large array of all different kinds of morphs, so that is going to raise that price way up to hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on what morph you're looking at. However, bearded dragons are much more expensive to set up initially. This is where bearded dragons price kind of skyrockets because they do need a larger tank. If you are starting your bearded dragon off in its adult size tank, you are looking at getting a 4 foot by 2 foot tank, a very long UVB light that spans about 3/4 of that tank, and then an additional heat source, vegetables, and bugs. Baby bearded dragons eat a lot of bugs. You're looking at a pretty large investment going into a bearded dragon. A leopard gecko obviously is going to have a pretty large investment too going into it, but a bearded dragon's just costs more. Both of these animals are absolutely amazing though. As long as you have done your research, you know what goes into them, you're set up for them, you're ready to go, you know what you're getting yourself into, both of these animals are fantastic reptiles to have. Every single time I do one of these videos, I get the question of what was my opinion or why didn't you tell us your opinion? And that's just because I love them all. For this one, my personal opinion is overall, leopard geckos are probably going to take the win here. I guess if it's a competition, it's versus, I guess it's a competition. Leopard geckos overall have the upper hand just because they are less expensive, their upkeep is less expensive, they're easier to care for overall. However, if you are looking for a bigger animal that is going to be a better cuddler, then bearded dragons are probably going to take the win for you. This, as always, depends completely on you and your personal circumstances. I do want to hear from you. Which one of these do you prefer, bearded dragons or leopard geckos? Make sure to leave it down in the comments below. But that is all that I have. I honestly thought this video was going to be a lot longer. I had like all of these notes and like, that's a lot of notes. But that is it for this video. As I said at the beginning of this video is sponsored by the Doobie Dude. The Doobie Dude is and always has been a fantastic place to get doobie roaches or your bearded dragon or leopard gecko or whatever other animal may eat them. They are always my favorite feeder. They are super filling for your animal. They are very nutritious. They're easy to keep clean and easy to keep alive. And if it is possible for you to feed your animals doobie roaches, I highly recommend it. And they have subscription services. So if you don't want to think about ordering doobie roaches, you don't have to. Set up a subscription service. Make sure that if you do happen to order some doobie roaches from the doobiedude.com, you use my code Elle to save 10% off of that order. They are an awesome company. Thank you so much to the Doobie Dude for sponsoring this video. As always, if you have not already, please feel free to follow me on my other socials, like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications every single time I put out a video, which is every Sunday and some Wednesdays. This week's Instagram shout out is here, and this week's subscriber shout out is here. Thank you both so much for watching and following and subscribing and commenting and liking and all of the amazing things. Thank you guys both so much. You are the bee's knees. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye. Dusty leaves. Okay. Wait, did it zoom out? What? What's happened? Okay, here we go. With both how and handling and initial handling down of bearded dragons and initial and that's just completely normal for beard that's just completely normal. So the initial time that you're putting into the animals to get them to the point of being handleable. So they're both going to be between about $30 and $50 for the initial. They're both going to be about 30. They're both going to be about. They're easy to keep clean and